Okay, just gonna post some quick post-read thoughts. This is a little book I found by Ken Follett, who is an author that I love. He wrote the Pillars of the Earth, and then that launched a an entire series. I've read three of the five books in that series. But Pillars of the Earth is one of my favorite novels that I've read. It's about the construction of a cathedral in, I believe, 12th century England, and I think it's just absolutely excellent. And he writes about, even though it's fiction, he writes about the construction of a cathedral with such a care. Like he wants to get a lot of the terms right, try to understand like how these buildings were actually constructed at the time and things like that. And I really appreciated that about the novel. So I was actually at the Shakespeare and Company bookstore right out while I was in Paris, and right outside of the Notre Dame Cathedral. It's like right there, and I came across this little book that he wrote. It's called Notre Dame: A Short History of the Meaning of Cathedrals, and he wrote this basically right after the 2019 fire of the Notre Dame. He wrote this kind of in response to it, and kind of to raise awareness about like the importance of such an old and sacred space, and kind of like the importance also of the effort to kind of rebuild it that the French president announced like right after this happened at such like a very aggressive and quick pace, and why stuff like that is important. He also added a kind of like a very short preface to this as of when the at least the initial run of like all those renovations and construction and all that stuff was being done. He kind of wrote something. He visited the cathedral and just kind of saluted all the workers and everything. So that got added as a preface, but the main body of it is this kind of essay that he wrote on the building of Notre Dame. It's got a lot of the history of the actual construction, and again, kind of just more of like the meaning behind it and why it's important. It's a fairly short, like I think this copy, I like it's like a small little hardback, but this copy is about like 100 some pages, so it's a relatively short essay essentially. But I really liked everything that he said and everything that he was arguing for the importance. I wanted to read a couple pages of the ending that I thought was just like really impactful and that I think is going to stick with me. He says, furthermore, this work of art could not be made unless thousands more people supported the project. It was the achievement of an entire community. In Pillars of the Earth, I wrote about how the building of the cathedral drew in people from every sector of medieval society, not just the clergy, but aristocrats, business people, city dwellers, and rural agriculturalists. They gave support and money, a lot of money. Everyone benefited. Employment was created, commerce was strengthened, markets grew up, international migration was stimulated, and new technology was constantly being invented and spread. In my novel, those who oppose the building do so only because they want it built somewhere else. I have compared the building of a cathedral to a space launch. It involved the whole of society in the same way. It developed cutting-edge technology. It brought widespread economic benefits. And yet, when you add up all the pragmatic reasons, they're not quite enough to explain why we did it. There is another element, which is the spiritual, a kind of a human being's need to aspire to something above the material life. When you've seen how each group in the Kingsbridge series serves its own interest, you haven't yet grasped the full picture. Pillars of the Earth explains that it was also done for the glory of God. Not long ago, I was on the roof of Peterborough Cathedral. Some of the pinnacles had been replaced in the 1950s, and I noticed that the new ones were crude, lacking detail by comparison with the highly decorated medieval features beside them. The difference was not visible from the ground, and evidently the craftsmen of the 50s thought there was no point in carving details that no one can see. The medieval builders would have disagreed. They made the unseen parts just as carefully as those on public view because, after all, God could see them. A journalist asked me, "Don't you hate all the tourists in their shorts with their cameras?" No, I don't. Cathedrals have always been full of tourists. In the Middle Ages, they were not called tourists, they were pilgrims, but they traveled for many of the same reasons. To see the world and its marvels, to broaden their minds, to educate themselves, and perhaps to come into touch with something miraculous, otherworldly, eternal. I believe that a novel is successful to the extent that it touches the emotions of the reader. And something similar may be true of all works of art. It is certainly true of cathedrals. Our encounters with them are emotional. When we see them, we are awestruck. When we walk around, we are enraptured by their grace and light. When we sit quietly, we are possessed by a sense of peace, and when one burns, we weep. And that's actually how he ended the essay, and I thought it was just like so incredibly eloquent, and he's just such a good writer, and this is just another example of that. So this was very cool to me, being at Notre Dame for the first time, which was very surreal in itself. Going to this really cool old historic bookstore and coming across this was just awesome. And again, I loved everything that Ken Follett wrote and all the meaning behind it. And I believe he said that he was donating all of the proceeds to a foundation that was like been helping the cathedral and the reconstruction of it and everything like that. So this is a really cool little book that if you're interested in the history of Notre Dame or more about the fire and everything that unfolded, it's a short, like, again, it's like maybe 100 pages or so, kind of a short essay, but really cool. Definitely worth checking out if you're interested. So those are my quick post-read thoughts of this.